Hey everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we're going to talk about why we should care about the realities we're leaving behind. Now, this is going to sound a little contradictory because usually I say once we leave a reality, we close it out and we button it up and we go forward, and the whole thing will dissolve and it's really not there anymore. So there's no reason to put any effort into remembering it, bringing that energy forward, recreating it. But I'm going to take a different spin on it today and talk about the difference in how a human reacts to leaving a reality and how you learn to shift that. When you start anchoring in your higher consciousness aspects and you start getting into higher consciousness living it, which is a little different than hitting it here and there. You actually start living it, and that's what happens once you get kind of past 5-dimensional consciousness, where you're kind of in this floaty space, and you start having to anchor in new realities. Because in that floaty space, we don't anchor anything in. We're just enjoying that space. Everything's beautiful, everything's vibrant, everything's gorgeous. We just love it. So even when you're in the 5-dimensional realities and things are ending, you still don't close them out correctly. I don't want to use the word correctly, but that's probably not the word I even want to use. It came out that way, but we don't close them out in full alignment because we haven't learned how. When you're in your 5-dimensional, you're just kind of waking up to the higher dimensions. The colors are brighter, food tastes better, you feel peace, you feel connected. And you might not be able to hold it 24/7, but you understand what it is. You still might have a linear job. Usually we do have a linear job in those moments because we don't know how to support ourselves yet in the higher realms. So a lot of times our linear job, our human jobs will stay with us. Sometimes people go on unemployment. So even the human systems will still support you in a sense because you can't support yourself yet. And you might even find this when you get into the higher different dimensional realms that you might see some of this stuff come back to support you, but I think I'm going to do that in another video. So stay tuned for that one, but that's not this one. So you'll find even when you start entering into the 5-dimensional, people call it 5D, and that's just the gateway really to heaven on earth, to the higher dimensions. That's your gateway into that connective space. Everyone has that floaty, that high voice, everything's love, everything's light. When people are here, and when you're not there, you don't want to hear people being there. Because it's really before anything really happens. It's like you're excited. It's like a kid going into Disney World and you're about to get on a ride. You're super excited and you can't wait, and everything's new and everything's great, and they set you down and you're waiting for someone to buckle you in, and you soon realize there's no buckle. Fuck, we don't even get a safety strap. We don't have anything, and you just get pushed, and there you go. But 5D is kind of still being in the line, about to get on the ride. You don't realize what's ahead. Because if you realize what was ahead, you get the hell out of the line. Your human would get the hell out of the line. Because your fear would get the best of you. So you can't really start off in the higher realms, putting that toe in, if it feels really rough for our human. And anytime I say it feels really rough, it's always for our human. Everything else is fine. Our soul's fine. Our higher aspects are fine. Our human doesn't like it because it's so different than what we're used to. And our whole human worlds get turned upside down. And we don't see the magnitude yet of that when we're just getting out there. We're just starting on our path, in a sense. We're just transitioning over to 5D. We see what it is. We understand what it is. We might have some things of a human reality still hanging around, but we know they're just there. We might not even realize it yet, but they're just kind of there to support you. Because you can't support yourself yet. You don't know how to support yourself and hold your highest aspects also. You haven't learned that yet. That takes time. It takes situations you have to keep going through to be able to do that. So that's kind of what happens. You have to be able to learn to live it, right? That's why even when you're in that phase, which is going to get me back to what I started this video on, even when you're in that phase, you don't really know how to close down realities. So that's why you keep kind of going through a lot of the similar stuff. Because in our human world, when we were in our human consciousness, and that's what ruled, that's what made the choices for us, that's the consciousness that overruled all of our other consciousness, which we really hadn't anchored in yet, but we really weren't even open to it. we didn't give a shit about what we left behind. And when I say we didn't give a shit, I mean we didn't give a shit. Anyone who's ever given 2 weeks notice at a job, normally you completely check out and do not care. And there might be some exceptions to that, but I'll still say you didn't really care. You might have had some attachment and grief in leaving, but as far as putting everything into it and really having the depth that you had before, you just don't, because you're already detached from it. You're already going on to something else. And then when you break up with a person, you don't give it your full attention. And I'm just going to say that because you've already got the next thing lined up. And in the human world, that's how it works. You have the next thing can come in and you have it lined up. You know, you leave one job for another job. Not all the time, but normally. We're going to go with just theme for this. But, you know, sometimes people don't leave one relationship till they see another relationship come in. And they kind of just boomerang back and forth to different things. So you really don't care how you close this thing out, because your energy's already on someone else, is already on something else. Even if you haven't started a new job yet, it's still on those new people, that new company, whatever that thing is, whatever that other shiny carrot is that's been dangled that you're really excited about now. You're not focused on what you're doing now. You're not focused on the moment of closing this out properly. That's why a lot of times, most of the time, our human keeps repeating shit, because we don't ever know how to close anything out. Technically, it's always going to be in a higher dimension. Well, I don't know if I want to use a dimension there. It's in a different frequency in the same dimension, but you're still you're still taking up in frequency. You just haven't crossed a different dimension yet, but you're still taking up in frequency. So that is why when you get into the higher realms, you don't get the next thing. You just know you got to end this thing. You don't get the next thing yet. And you might not get the next thing for a while. It might be months before the next thing comes in. It could be weeks, it could be days, it could be a year, it could be 3 years, depending on how big that old thing was, how big of a program that was for you to move out of your consciousness, how big that was to let go of, how much grieving you had to do to let it go. All that has to clear the body before the new thing can come in. So in the higher dimensions, you don't get the new thing. You just know this shit's got to end right here in front of you. For whatever reason, you just know this has got to go. And when you get to certain spaces in your consciousness, you know this has got to go. Either the money won't come for it. That's always a big indicator for me. If something I've always had the money to do, the money doesn't come. When it usually comes for this, whatever this thing is, it means something's going on here. There's a reason why all of a sudden, I can't pay for this right now. What's going on? Because when you get into the higher realms, you move on cash. You don't move on credit anymore. The credit is in the human realms. It's not in the higher realms. Everything's on cash. So if you don't have the cash, you don't do it. So you really start to pay more attention to what comes in for what when the money comes in. And if you've always been able to pay this, even if you didn't have a lot of money coming in, you always had the money for this one thing because you were supposed to be there. You had soul contracts there. You're supposed to be in that place. It was supporting you in some sense, and now it's not there anymore. You kind of look at it. And what I'll do is I'll look at stuff like that when that happens, and I'll go, okay, I got to close this thing out. Is that what's going on here? And sometimes you might have to close it out, and if you have to give notice, or if it's a contract or whatever, you'll notice the money will start coming after that once you've made the decision to close it out. You'll have the resources to close it out in its highest place. You won't just, that was an old Muppet movie that used to say, you're paying credit card, cash, or sneak out in the middle of the night. You're no longer going to be sneaking out in the middle of the night, and leaving realities in that place. Your universe will give you the opportunity to close it out in the highest place. Now, if you don't close it out and you keep letting it go on, you might find the money is not there, and you're going to have to try to, we work a lot of stuff to get the money there, or people just aren't very nice to you there anymore because they're shooing you out the door too, because you're not supposed to be here anymore. You don't belong here anymore. Get out of here. What are you still doing here? It's done. This shit is over. Get out. So, but there is a part of this process where we have to learn to focus on what's ending and to end it in its highest place and not worry about the new thing. I make it a point now, even though if I'm ending something, whether it's, a gym membership, whatever it is for me, a job, a gym membership, a partnership in some way, I look at even though my human wants to go out and look for the next thing and be like, okay, go out and try to get the next thing lined up. That's our human wants to do that. It's trying to split my energy in a sense, split my focus. I'm gonna focus on having the best time and whatever this thing is ending, and be in this moment with these people here in this situation. And if it was a gym and I usually cleaned up, the room after I used it, and I've always done that, I'm going to continue to do everything I always did. Maybe even go overboard and do more, leave it in a better place than when it was before. Because that's what you do when you get that. Those are our higher aspects. That's what we do for people. You want to leave it in the best place. But if you have all these other things going around, you don't do that because you're too worried about the next thing. That's it. Our human consciousness wants us to go line up the next thing. That is not your higher consciousness. Your higher consciousness will bring it in. So when I leave anything, if anyone ever asks me, where are you gonna go now? What are you gonna go do now? I don't know. I want to end this. I want to focus on ending this. I might take a couple days, depending on how big it was. Sometimes I'll take a day. Even if my human doesn't want to take a day, my human wants to jump into the next thing right away. It could be a day, it could be a week, it could be months, it could be years before you'll start to see things start to come back in. You'll definitely see that in partnerships. It takes to me, that takes longer in a sense, because we have to kind of get rid of a lot of the human attachment to partnerships, learn to kind of be on your own for a while, and then you'll start seeing partnerships come back in. But there can be some resistance to that because we don't want to go down the same path we did before. Because we go down the same path, we have this fear we're going to repeat shit again. We're going to go down that same path again. I'm going to lose myself in a romantic relationship again, or lose myself in whatever partnership this is. And I'm going to think they know more than me, or whatever you used to do. So you got to make sure, you don't got to do anything, but what I do is kind of check my body resistance and see, okay, I might not want to ever be in a partnership of this type again, right? It might be my conscious choice to not do that anymore because I don't need that experience anymore. But if I'm resistant to it, that's different. I need to be open to it, and I still might look at it and choose not to participate in it. But if I'm not open to it, I'm resistant to it because I don't 100% trust myself. I'm afraid I'm going to go into the old patterns. We need to kind of look at that. So pay attention to what you're closing out and give it as much love and as much attention as you're capable of giving it. Because then you can really move on to something completely new in a sense, because you've ended that thing properly. And that's the most important thing. You got to stick the landing. You stick the landing, which we, like I said earlier on, we don't know how to do that, and that's okay. We're learning. 5-dimensional realities are all about learning. 5D, 60, 70, really all of them are about learning, but especially 5D, 60, 70, 8D, learning how to put all the shit back together again once it's all kind of fallen apart, or you just walked away from it. And 5D, a lot of times we just walk away from shit because we can't deal with any of it. It's so misaligned, and we don't have enough of our soul light embodied yet to align it, and we don't have the energy to deal with it. We can't even hold our vibration long enough in some cases to deal with a real human mess that we've gotten ourselves into. We just walk away. And that's perfectly fine. Sometimes that's what you'll feel like, that's the best I can do right now is walk away from this. But there gets to a point where we can't do that anymore. And I hear a lot of people say, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't means I'm not willing to do it yet. So look at what you can't do and start changing the word to I'm not willing to do that. So this was a little all over the place, but okay. Keep practicing the art of intuition.